Chapter 48. Now, for more detail regarding the aspect of the construction of Malchut, which is called Kala, the bride, because it includes Hakol, everything, etc. This is the fact that everything becomes revealed in the aspect of speech in a tangible and separate way, like the letters of speech which reveal all. This includes even the aspect of the essential pleasure and desire that is in the essential self of the infinite light literally, that is, the aspect of the Hayuli desire for kindness which was previously mentioned in chapter 10, as it chains down in its great descent until the desire and wisdom and emotions of Adam Kadmon and Arich Anpin, until the aspect of the desire, wisdom and emotions in the external vessels of Zer Anpin. All this comes into the aspect of Malchut, which is the aspect of the supernal speech with a revelation of somethingness in an aspect of Atzilut. Regarding this it states, I am first and I am last, and it similarly states, see that I am he. That is the aspect of Malchut of Ein Sof vested in Malchut of Atzilut, which is called the end of all the levels, etc. Now, we must first understand in a detailed manner the Partzuf stature of Malchut from the aspect of Keter that is in it until the aspect of Malchut that is in it, which penetrates the screen to become the Keter of Bria, etc. For on Rosh Hashanah, the construction of Keter of Nukva, Keter of the female takes place, etc., and this is why we say the 10 verses of kingship, etc. In other words, this is in order to draw forth the aspect of the pleasure and desire for kingship anew, that is, to awaken anew the aspect of the simple pleasure and desire of the essential self of I will rule, etc. This is the explanation of the verse, the mighty in strength that fulfill his word, etc., as mentioned in the Zohar, and as explained elsewhere regarding the words, and they have given you a crown of kingship, etc. For it is known that the aspect of the aforementioned revelation of speech is what is called the word of the king, and it is the attribute of lordship, as it states, Hashem reigns, he is clothed in majesty, etc., or your kingdom is a kingship over all the worlds, etc. This is analogous to the attribute of lordship in man, which is an attribute that is separate from one's essential self, for it is the attribute of ruling over one's fellow specifically, etc. This is not the case with the other attributes which are literally part of the essential self. For instance, with the light of the attribute of kindness, the soul itself is drawn after and becomes aroused by the kindness. For the primary essence of that attribute is a drawing forth from the essential self of the soul. The same is true of wisdom, which is drawn from the essential self of the soul. In regard to the attribute of lordship, however, even though the soul is aroused by it, nevertheless it primarily comes into being by something that is separate from the self, that is, that he rules over his fellow, and if there were nothing aside for him, then there would be no arousal of this attribute whatsoever. And although the attribute of kindness is also specifically in order to do kindness with his fellow, nevertheless the beginning of its arousal is within his essential self, even if there is no one to bestow his goodness to. Which is not the case regarding the attribute of lordship, which essentially does not come into being without someone over whom to rule. The proof of this is from the fact that its entire construction of spreading to a length and breadth depends solely on the sublimation of the people. When they exalt him, they arouse the ultimate depth of his domain, but with the lessening of the sublimation, the light of this attribute likewise lessens, etc. However, with the attribute of kindness, it will spread forth as it is in the essential self, and although there will be fluctuations of more or less kindness according to the manner in which the recipient arouses and requests, with great pleading or with less pleading, etc., nevertheless, it is not primarily constructed from this, etc. This will suffice for the understanding. Now we must understand the analogue of this because, as is the kingdom below, so is the kingdom of heaven, in that there specifically is no king without a nation. This is because, although the lordship of the aspect of the attribute of Malchut above is like the other supernal attributes, nevertheless it is not an actual drawing forth from the aspect of the essential self. However, it nonetheless is there in potential and in great concealment, for even in mankind, even a small child possesses the aspect of lordship to rule over everything, including animals. For this is his nature immediately from birth, as it states, and God said to them, have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that creeps upon the earth, etc. We observe in the nature of a child that his desire is to control and dominate over animals, beasts and birds, etc., as discussed elsewhere, that this is a quality specific to the mankind. In contrast, the attributes of kindness and mercy may also be found even in the beasts, such as the eagle, which is merciful, etc. Now, even though the essential hidden attribute is called the attribute of lordship, nevertheless, its primary construction is specifically to have dominion over something external to himself, and it is specifically then that the pleasure and great desire to rule is drawn forth. According to this, we must understand how this is applicable above in godliness, for there is nothing outside of him upon whom to rule, etc. Therefore, it would not be possible for there to be the aspect of the construction of Malchut with desire and pleasure and emotions in the aspect of a complete stature in the aspect of Atzilut, were it not for the arousal of his desire that there should be a being separate from himself over which to rule. And it is specifically then that this attribute is aroused in the emanator, and about this it states, Hashem reigned, he is clothed in majesty, that is, he vests within this attribute to be a king over a nation. It is for this reason that it is specifically this attribute which must be renewed from its essential source every Rosh Hashanah, that is, all the way to the aspect of the essential thought, I will rule, within the essential self of the infinite light, etc., which is the aspect of lordship which arose in his essential self prior to the tzimtzum, the restraint. It is for this reason that the first tzimtzum restraint, which is called the empty space, makom panui, took place in order that there be something outside of his essential self upon which it would be applicable for the light of lordship of Malchut of the Ein Sof to rule. This is as stated elsewhere regarding the verse, she does him good, etc., about the root of the idolaters whom he separated from his oneness in an aspect of darkness and tzimtzum, restraint, etc., so that there would be the attribute of Tiferet, mercy. This is because the attribute of mercy likewise only applies to a person who specifically is foreign and distant, etc. This will suffice for the understanding. In this manner, we may understand the aspect of Malchut of Atzilut, the end of all levels of Atzilut, which is the desire and pleasure, etc., of the attribute of lordship to be the king over Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, for which purpose it was necessary for there to be the constriction of the screen between Atzilut and Bria, so that it becomes the head of the foxes, etc., as known. This then is the meaning of I am first and I am last. That is, I am first in the aspect of Malchut of Ein Sof, and I am last in Malchut of Atzilut, for their being is bound with their end, and this takes place each and every Rosh Hashanah as known. This will suffice for the understanding.